Sean Jimenez. How the hell are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Please tell me I pronounced your name correctly.
Close enough. It's okay. Close enough.
What's the proper pronunciation?
Jimenez.
Jimenez. And I'm
Oh,
Hispanic. Like I should be able to say these things.
right. Most of us forget our high school Spanish after so many years.
Yes, but I'm Hispanic. Like, welcome to the Retail Whore podcast. I am so excited to have you here.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
A little backstory is when I attended Magic this last show, I was with Burt's Pharmacy and Aaron was picking out socks and you and I shot the shit. And I was like, okay, this is like old school retailer, somebody that's been in the industry forever. And I had so much fun talking to him. Like, I need to have you on the podcast. So here you are.
I actually, truth be told, I think I forced myself on this podcast. So I think I was the one that said, I want to be on this. And you said, sure, I got a couple spots. And I said, all right, I'm going to take one. So.
It's funny because you did ASR, correct? Back in the day?
No, we didn't. Personally, I've attended. Yes. As a brand that you saw me with recently. Yeah. No, we've never been there.
You remind me of that conversation, hanging out, talking to you, reminded me of my days of ASR, which I loved. For those of you who don't know what ASR is, it used to be the Action Sports Retailer Show, which is now, I don't even know if it's even represented.
There are other shows that take its place, but no, ASR is kind of no more.
There was nothing like that show from that day.
I think just trade shows in general, as we've all seen, if you've been in the industry or getting in the industry, if you're getting in the industry, it's hard you don't really have a comparison, right? There's no baseline. Mm-hmm. If you're getting into the industry now, it's kind of like, depending on where you go, what show it is. I mean, it could suck, right? It could be like, oh my God, we saw, in our booth, 20 people today and 10 yesterday, right? And we've all had those shows. But for shows that you just mentioned and whatnot, like back in the day when,
oh my God,
those were, I mean, it was just such a different world. And having those 3-day shows, which any show on the planet right now should only be 3 days, by the way. Anybody listening from Atlanta Gift. But back in the day when you went there to work and you worked and you played and you worked hard and you played hard, but you did that. And having those, if you remember, like days of Magic even, and I just met you at Magic, but even way back in the beginning, it was just such a phenomenal show. I mean, I remember having pardon me, just going down the aisles to get to the next appointment. Do you remember that?
Yeah. That time in retail was like the time of excess. I had my stores at Fred Siegel then. So I sold Stussy, Quicksilver, Spot Sport, talk about some old names.
Yeah.
Pirate Surf.
Oh my God.
I sold all those brands and it was like, going through those and trying to be back-to-back appointment and going through and navigating through the aisles when it was that. And plus the party from the booth is now, out onto the floor and you're going through people and trying to, people are drinking and this is 9 a.m. mind you.
Yeah. 9 a.m. in Las Vegas or LA or wherever, just Chicago. Yeah. It's just a different world. And that's kind of the trade show world that I became accustomed to early, right? As a store owner, and then as a buyer, and then as just on the wholesale side and representing different manufacturers and brands. But it used to be so much fun, and you could get so much work done. And then going back to these giant booths, which granted they were a little over the top, but oh my God, how much fun! To go up to a Whisper Suite in a Levi's booth or have a full on runway, T runway, like where models just going it's just crazy. It was just crazy. And it was a lot of fun. I think there was as much creative on the booth itself than it was in the apparel or the garments or whatever.
It's funny. Have you seen the, it's the, I think it's Netflix or somebody, it's the documentary on God.
I haven't.
Yeah.
Now I know what you're talking about, and I have not seen it. But I should go back.
I can't now. Everyone's going to be like, "What the hell is she talking about?" But that they talk about the days of excess of Magic, and they had strippers on
Oh,
poles in the booth, and they had like a car detailer. I mean, it was
yeah.
the DJ. I mean, they like there's no such thing as shows like that anymore.
Yeah, and it was interactive before it became before the buzzwords of being interactive,
Yeah.
like, and there are still some good shows, and I think it's, in 2018, 2019, things started to kind of wane a bit. So the show circuit was kind of stale. I think honestly, I think one of the things that for us as a brand anyway, when COVID hit and everybody, paused, the world paused and shut down, what it did for us as a brand, we just sat back in kind of our creative easy chair and like, okay, how do we pivot? What do we do? And at that time, right before COVID hit, I had just flown back from New York from working with a key account, and I had just finished New York Magic prior to that. And so it was quiet, and we were thinking, internally, the discussions that we were having in the house were, hey, maybe we pull back for a year or two on the trade show circuit and just kind of hold that money, put it towards other things, right? And then I don't know what the hell that was. And then reevaluate in 2021, 2022, and see if going back to trade shows made sense. Well, then COVID hit. We were forced to shut down and not attend trade shows. And then when we started up again, the energy was different. It was a little more reserved, but the quality of buyers, God, this is on airplane mode, by the way. The quality of buyers totally changed. So we went from like 2018, 17, 18, 19 to a bunch of looky-loos, people kicking tires, just being there for whatever, to now being back at post-COVID, being at a show and where people were wanting to work.
Yeah.
And that was a really, really pronounced like difference that we just saw immediately.
Yeah.
We did see, it's no longer like we just talked about. It's no longer bumping, shoulders in the aisles because it's so crowded, very sparse, very open. But the people that were there, the quality of buyers was so much better. And it's been really good. The show circuits for us for the last year and a half have been really, really positive. Although I do miss days of, way back. I do miss those days.
It's, I'm going to introduce like what, and we're going to tell us what you do right now. But at my last, it was Von Dutch is the the line that I couldn't come. But I will say for shows now that because retail, I mean, in a pandemic shutdown situation, like it's insane how much our business grew and how much all my other retailers, how much their business grew, and how people now are like, we need to get in and we need to see new product. We need to see, touch it, feel it, find new resources. And I think that's where there's not, like you said, not as many people there. The people that are there, quality, that are buying.
Yeah. And they want to be there. They're there for purpose, with purpose. And that's just really important because as much, as fun as it is to just kind of make a day go fast because you're talking to a lot of people, if the quality and the value isn't there, those people and those buyers, then like, it's just kind of a waste of time.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm a waste of money also because those booths are not cheap.
I know we just added 2 new shows this year and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm looking at the, like I'm getting all these invoices and, oh, I need to prepay for this. Like, okay. And then it's like, Jesus Christ. This is insane.
I forget, it was Wasabi, I think, that was telling us the booth price. And it was a small booth and it was like some insane amount of money. And I'm like, I really hope you're pumping a shit ton of $5 t-shirts because that is a lot of money.
All about your volume, right? I mean, it's like when a booth is, $85 to $110 a square foot, and for us, I mean, in this industry, we're a high functioning, high performing, high revving accessory brand. And, that, I mean, that when I met you at Magic, that we didn't even I brought half of the product that we have in our warehouse, in literally living product in our catalog, right? I only brought half of it. And that was 1,000 SKUs.
Wow. Okay. So tell everybody about the brand, because you have a long history in retail. So I know I've got you for an hour or so, and we have a lot of ground to cover, but I don't want to, I've already skipped over your introduction. tell
Okay.
everybody about what you do and the brand that you're with, and then we'll dive in a little deeper.
So currently I am with a brand, well, basically we like to call ourselves a design company, but which is true. But it's called Socksmith Design. So 95% of our business is novelty socks, and we've been doing that since 2007. So we've been around for a while. I consider us definitely a veteran in the novelty sock world. There are other brands that have been there longer, a little bit longer. But yeah, that's our bread and butter, novelty socks. But we do bottles. We're working on a couple other programs as well, products, launches that will get later this year and then next year. And then I'm the director of sales and marketing for Socksmith Design here in Santa Cruz, California.
Oh, I didn't realize you're in Santa Cruz. Okay.
Yeah. So here's the crazy thing though. So now I've been here for almost 6 years. It'll be 6 years next month. I live 3.5 hours away from my office.
What?
So I know this is the part that always freaks people out. Yeah.
So do you go?
So yeah. So what
I
I
have
do.
a wife and kids. So
I leave on a Tuesday morning, depending on what my schedule looks like. Could be a Monday morning, could be a Tuesday morning. Usually I try to make it a Tuesday morning, but I leave on a Tuesday morning and I stay here a couple of nights and then I go back on a late Thursday night. So I'm home. Typically I'm home Friday through Monday night. So
wow.
gone a couple of nights, home for the rest. But
how old are your kids?
They're 21 and 19.
Okay, so you're not leaving like little ones home. But
I've done this for a while, but then I had a lot of sport. But yeah, it's a little bit of a gnarly schedule, but I've been commuting, like super commuting. I would call that super commuting, right? Yeah. But I've been super commuting for 12, 13 years now. So, but it's kind of weird. I always, I was going to San Francisco for a long time. I went to, I was working in Petaluma, like Novato area for a long time with a brand. So a lot of times I was able to like go home if I needed to, even though it would take me a couple hours, but I could get there.
Do you keep an apartment up there then, since you're at the same place, or are you?
Yeah,
I have so many questions.
If I told you how I'm living right now or where I stay, it sounds really strange. But so I stayed with, for several years, the first few years I was here, I stayed with my very good friend of mine who I've known is an industry guy. I've known him forever. He used to be a footwear and an aloha shirt representative. He was my sales rep when I was a retailer, over 20 years ago. So I've known him for many, many, many years. He and his wife live here on the coast, and they have a big, beautiful home, and it's empty because their kids are older and they've moved on and, married and all that kind of stuff. So when he helped me actually get this job, he introduced me to the owners of Socksmith, because they were growing so fast that they needed help kind of managing internally the team and then also the reps. So when he introduced me to Eric and Ellen, the owners, we hit it off right away. I was employed with the brand in San Francisco, looking to move on for a number of different reasons, but the timing was it was right. So when they made me the offer, they said, hey, look, the problem, our biggest issue and concern, obviously, is that you live 3 hours away. But it just so happened that my friend Henry, who made the introduction, who at that time was a road rep. Okay, so he was like a traditional road rep, bags in the back of the truck.
Oh my God.
Yep, that was him. And he'd been doing it for 30 years.
I feel for those guys, man.
Yeah. So he's like, Sean, we've got this big house. It's just my wife and I. Why don't you just stay with us? And I'm like, wow, that would be cool until I find something, right? Well, I did that for 3 years. I posted up in their house for 3 years, and it was kind of funny. I was very blessed and very lucky. So anyway, I ended up leaving there and then living staying at a place north. So in Santa Cruz, like north of Santa Cruz is like San Francisco and that kind of area. So I commuted on the coastal highway for about a year and change after I left their place, and stayed by myself in like this little beach cottage, which was really cool. But it's a drive, and it was an hour, and it was 2.5 hours a day. So hour and 10 or hour and 15. But now, and this is where it gets kind of strange. So now I got a trailer, a big 30-foot trailer. It's pretty nice, I parked that, and so I'm like the Mel Gibson back in the Lethal
That's cool
Weapon.
though.
But I'm not on the beach. I wish that'd be cool. But yeah, that's where I am. So it's a really weird. Sorry, it took more than time than I thought I was gonna give you.
No,
But
it's not that weird. It's funny because, because I'm freelance. So Bert's is one of my clients.
okay,
Bristol Farms is one of my other clients. And every holiday we do all 14 locations of Bristol Farms. And I mean, we are doing them in the middle of the night. So like I try and go to sleep, and at 11 o'clock at night, the alarm goes off and I get up and have
yeah,
coffee
it's
as
crazy.
if it's like 6 a.m. and we go and we're in a grocery store at 1 a.m. And my husband's like, why don't we just buy a fucking motorhome and just park
Yeah,
it outside? And then
absolutely.
we're there. The dogs can be in the car. We are not buying a motorhome. So we can sleep outside of Bristol Farms for 14 days in November. No,
Wait, you didn't get it?
hell no. Like if we get anything like that, we're gonna get like something super cool, and we're not driving it to Bristol Farms. We're driving it to like where you are, so he can go surf.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. For me, it's weird, right? All the stars align, all that whole thing. I was looking at a piece of property here on the coast, and I was hell bent from moving up north, which is, my summers are 109, 110.
Where's your home?
So outside of Sacramento by about 45 minutes, 50 minutes. So up
Okay.
as you can start heading towards Tahoe, like the foothills. So, but it's hot, right? So I was thinking, God, man, I'd really like to be on this, move my wife here to the coast and get away from like the heat. And so started looking at property, and then had all these grand visions in my head. And so we bought this trailer. I'm going to park this damn trailer. I'm going to live in this trailer until I can figure out how I'm going to build a house. And then I started talking to a realtor, and she's like, yeah, you can't, the coastal commission, right? And I knew this because I'd gone through it before once, many, many, many years ago. But I thought I'd maybe sneak on a few acres and not be seen. And she's like, yeah, the moment you put a trailer on that, the first person that sees it, I'm like, wait, is somebody living there? And calls the city, like, you're screwed. She's like, so you got to put in the sewer, you got to put in a septic, you got to put in a well, you got to put in a water, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, that's not, I kind of blew a hole in my plan. So I had already had the trailer because we just got it, because I had this big plan. And then I was like, oh crap, now I have to pivot. And so I did. So that's
Your home away from home.
my home. It's my mobile bachelor pad is what I call
it. So you are in, I want to talk a little bit. First, I want to go back to your retail, and then I want to circle back around about Socksmith and talk about some of the designs, because I buy it as a retailer. We sell it phenomenally. It's probably one of the best sock lines that we have had. The sell is phenomenal. So just for those of you who are listening, thinking about this is a phenomenal line, and the sell-through is great. So what retailer, you had stores, or you were?
I had a store years and years ago. I bought it. I was looking for a job. I was walking, we moved into this small coastal town, the one that I was living in actually, years ago, like in the 90s. So my best friend and I, he was in high tech in the Silicon Valley way back in the day. I went the wrong direction and was in retail. So he's in high tech doing his thing. I'm in retail scraping, like working, well, I don't know, at the time, probably $8 an hour, $6 an hour. I don't even know. So long ago. And he happened to work for a software company that made a really cool software. And at the time, that what put them on the map was, do you remember the second Terminator movie?
Yes.
So Arnold was a good guy, yeah? Remember?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so Arnold was Terminator. The first Terminator came out. Arnold was the Terminator. He was a bad guy. The second Terminator came out, and Arnold was a good guy. He'd come back to protect, right, the future. Anyway, there's a special effect in that movie where the bad guy, the bad Terminator, was a liquid. It looked like mercury.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that software was what my best friend, who's still my best friend today, was selling.
Wow.
So when Terminator 2 came out, that of course put the company through the roof, right? Their stock went crazy. And then Jurassic Park came out, and they literally had their computers on their desktops, like on their offices in the movie. So all these things started happening. So he took off, and here I am still in retail. But he called me one day. He's like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna buy this little house on the coast." I'm like, "Cool," because we were living inland. I'm like, "Cool." So he finds this little cottage. He buys it. We moved to the coast. I wasn't going to commute the hour. I was going to, the 45 minutes to the other side of the hill. So I literally walked up and down the street looking for a job. And I'd already had, because I was young, and I already had retail experience, just saying, yes, can I help you, take your money, blah, blah, blah.
How old are you at this point, if you don't mind me asking?
I just left college. So I was 22.
Okay.
21, 22. Yeah. And I think he probably bought this house. Yeah. So probably 23 maybe at that time. So my then girlfriend, now wife, we left Las Vegas. That's where I graduated from. And she was in a job in Alameda, so she wasn't going to leave. And my buddy Eric and I were at this house, and I was literally looking for a job. So I walked up and down the street to every retail spot I could find, and I couldn't get a job. And so I went into this really big, beautiful store that was predominantly women's. And there were 5 women inside of this store, and there were no men, but they sold men's clothing. And so I went to the manager and I said, "Hey, I'm looking for work. Do you have a spot, or do you need some part-time help?" And she's like, No, we're all good. Thanks. And I said, "Okay." So I went back 2 days later and I said, "Hey, I'm back. I was just wondering if you had any, if you give some thought, or I'm here, I live here." And she's like, No, we're okay. Well, then I went back again. So I think I went back. I ended up going back. Yeah. I ended up going back 5 times within like 10, 11 days. I mean, I literally bugged the hell out of them, but that's okay. So finally I went in, she's like, "Clearly you're not going away." And I said, "Well, look," I said, it comes down to a couple of things. First is you're selling men's clothing in here, and you don't have a man on the floor, even though a man owned the business. I said, "But you don't have you're just women in here that's selling men's clothing." And she goes, "Yeah, but men are easy to buy for. Men don't pay attention." I'm like, "Okay, I get that." And she said, I have a problem. I said, "I don't know that you could sell women's clothing." And I said, "I'll tell you what, why don't you try me for a week? And then you can decide, right? Maybe it's not a good fit. Maybe I do suck. I don't know. But I'm confident in myself enough to know that I was going to be okay." And I had hair, right? It was before I lost all my hair. So I had a pretty decent head of hair, and it was long. And so anyway, she tried me, and I think 3 years later, I ended up buying the store. 4 years later, I ended up buying the store.
Wow. How long did you have the store for?
6, almost 7 years. And it was tough too, because I paid too much money for it. I was so excited. This kind of goes back to this thing. I think you and I talked a little bit about it at the show when we met, but retail is not for everybody. You know this. Gotcha. Anybody in a retail, or with a decent mindset, right, knows that retail is not for everybody. A lot of people do it because they have to, and it's it's such a big driving force in the U.S. economy. So if you can find a job, you can find a job in retail, whether it be food industry retail, or whether it be apparel or footwear or whatever, right? So you can find a job. They're always available, seemingly.
Excuse me, you can hear my dogs. I apologize.
But again, retail is not for everybody. My wife hates it, absolutely hates it. She'd work a sale in our store, and she's like, "I don't know how you do this all day. I'd want to punch everybody in the face." I'm like, "Okay, but you can't do that, right?" So whereas I'm not that way. I loved retail. I loved, like, every day that I got a package, like a box of apparel or footwear, except it was Christmas for me. I loved it.
Yeah.
And so I really, really, like, my big picture was, I want multiple stores. I want to have this really cool aesthetic and have really good product. But I was tied heavily to the Bay Area, because we were on the coast, right, in a resort town. And I had a lot of .com customers. Mm-hmm. And so when the first .com bubble, a lot of people don't remember this, but the first .com bubble burst, like in 02, 03, I was tied to that. My store was like directly tied to that kind of younger clientele. And so it hurt me. Like, I went from seeing, let's say a Saturday, from seeing 300, 400 people on a Saturday afternoon.
Wow.
To having, like, literally seeing like 20.
Wow.
And it was almost overnight. So I was like, oh my,
Wow.
I used to have my employees like, okay, if I'm not, I want you to count. And we would do like the little ticks, and count, like, who'd you see today? And cause I took all this data and I went back to the landlord. I'm like, look, man, this ain't happening. Like this is a problem. Now imagine, over 20 years, many years ago. And my rent was almost $8,000 a month.
Wait, how big of a space was this?
I had 3,100 square feet,
So what is that a square foot?
a lot.
Fuck, that's
Yeah.
insane.
So the bottom fell out, right? And I'm thinking like, shit, I gotta adjust here because this is a problem. And so I did I had collecting all this data and like, hey, this is a trend. This is not happening. I'm looking at the news. I'm showing them all the stuff. And I was like, hey, I need help. Like, I need some help. Like, let's figure something out. And he's like, no, it's not really my problem. And this is the guy, by the way, I bought the store from. So that was fun. And so anyway, I ended up moving and then to a smaller spot, and I never really recovered. And then once I was like, kind of saw the writing on the wall, like, man, once you stop paying yourself, because I want to pay my employees, and I just like, okay, it's over. And so finally I just had the hard decision to make. And, it's just one of those things. I loved it. I tried, I busted my ass. I worked, I don't know, I can't remember how many days in a row, 135 days in a row or something like that. But before I took a day off, but whatever. I mean, I loved it.
What town was this in?
This is in Half Moon Bay, a little spot on the coast.
Okay. Yeah, it's the rents, and when the bottom drops out, like I was up at one of my accounts, she's in Morgan Hill, and we drove, I don't know if it's Paso Robles that we drove to, but it was the pandemic. We had just kind of started opening, and there's a little downtown area that there are a shit ton of stores that are empty because people moved out during the pandemic. And then there are stores there that their landlords continue to raise the prices. So one of the stores had a sign on the door that said, unfortunately, after however many years of business, we have to close. We've tried to work with our landlord. They will not, they still want more rent. So we are forced to move. And it's like, that is shocking. And it's everywhere. I mean, it's
the same all the way, right? It's not just like California. As like there's stories all up and down, especially after COVID. It's like, yeah, we just couldn't make it work anymore. And it wasn't always lack of traffic, right? It wasn't always because people weren't coming in, although that was a big part of it. A lot of these little stores still had customers that wanted to support them.
Yeah.
But then many of them were just like, landlords were unforgiving.
No, yeah, absolutely. And also, a total side note, it's really weird. I've been trying to find a space for the last, 6 months. So I can move out of my home office that I've outgrown. I can't get a landlord on the other side of the coin. I can't get a landlord to call me back to save my life. Like, no joke. Like, I've stalked one guy, and he was finally like, okay, so you've got a hold of me. Let me take your number and I'll email you back. I've never heard from him again. And now I'm like, forget it. But
he must have been a buyer in a past life.
Ghosted. But it's like, there are tons of open places like that are still and yet either they're not going to lower the rent, or they just aren't concerned about renting. I don't know what it's so.
Well, I mean, a conglomerate, they don't give a shit. But I mean, that's just the thing, right? You have to be an advocate for yourself. And that's just with anything. And that was why for me, when I needed a job, I'm like, dude, you got to find some work, man. And you better find it in a hurry. I harassed these women like to hire me. Right.
I love that though. Cause honestly, like there's something that to be said about, hi, it's me again. Hi. I just and obviously it paid off.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, hindsight, I probably should have gone to tech, Maybe I'd have a little cottage on the coast. I don't know. But yeah. So, but it's all good. I loved, going back to the retail part, I just loved it. I loved being a store owner. I loved seeing, the same faces come in the door every day or every week with customers. I liked buying something that they liked and that they purchased. And then there were misses too. Like, oh man, I always used to, cause I had a couple of people that helped me too, buyer wise, but I always laughed because I'm like, man, men's is the easiest stuff to buy for. It's just the easiest, I'd buy for myself and buy from my older brother, and I buy from my father. So I had me who wears, I wear like pink linen pants and I wear capris. I don't give a shit, right? I wear color, I wear brightness, that's just typically what I do. My brother's way more conservative. He's like, give me a pair of khaki pants and a polo shirt and I'm good to go. And then my father, who's older. So I was like, okay, well, I need something comfortable for him. Maybe a bad shoulder. It's tough to pull over his head. So does he need a full zip? Does he need a 3/4 zip? So there are
Really smart.
all these approaches that I'm taking. Okay, there's me, which I'm going to buy, and I'm going to show some color, but not too much, because I know that I might be a little bit weird when it comes to just the normalcy back then of what a guy would wear. And then I take that approach, and it worked really well.
Yeah, that's really smart.
But then women, oh my God, that was just like, come on. Like I literally tried to buy denim because I had all these women coming and saying, Sean, you got it. We need this jean. We need this jean. I'm like, shit, okay, I'll go get this jean for you. And then I'd get it, 6 weeks later, and it was like, no, it's not that jean. We need this jean. I'm like, really? Because I can't do this. So I literally stopped selling women's. Yeah, I stopped selling women's denim. I just gave up.
Yeah, unless you do denim deep, forget it. Like I would know not to dip it, not to mention how much inventory you have to own for, like from the very smallest size to if you're gonna have a larger size. Like it is not, it's like shoes. Like once you get into shoes and they're case packed, you're screwed. It's like it's the amount of inventory. So what, I'm gonna ask you this, and then I want to jump to the Hawaiian shirt company, because so what was your philosophy on customer service? Because knowing you through Magic and through Socksmith, like I have to believe your customer service is very much what it was like.
Not being traditionally like some people are trained, right? You go, if you're on the Banana Republic side, you're in a vertical establishment, you're being trained a certain way, right? That's just, you go to school, you go to Zappos, they train you a certain way, right? Because it's all about customer service. Everybody and every Zappos employee has gone through their program, whether you're a buyer or a manager or whatever. You have to answer the phones for like 2 weeks, right? So I was always I never fully 100% bought into the customer's always right, because I'm also a very loyal person and I'm a very protective person. So if somebody's going to come at me or the people around me, I'm going to protect them first. And that's even now, like the brand, I'll protect the brand and the owners with my life, even if the customer, right, is wanting something else and or demanding something. So I was never like, oh, customer's always right. Customer's always right. That's the approach. No. That's not always the case. For me, it was always like, hey, I rarely ever say no. I always think there's a way. So that's just kind of my approach to things, I think. And then with the customer, customer facing, it was always about making friends. I just always would have that approach. Like, all you're doing is making friends. That's all you're going to do. Now that friend could come back 100 times and purchase 100 times, or maybe not, but it's about them leaving the building, leaving the store, going through the doors, thinking, you know what? I love, that's a great spot. I want to go back there. Like, I really enjoyed that. And that's what it's all about. And I think that's what makes or breaks a really good server at a restaurant or a bartender. I've told my kids since they were little, look, you ever have to 10 bar? It's very, very simple. Be nice, smile, be friendly. You have to wait tables, be nice, be friendly. No matter what, I don't care. Just be nice, be friendly, treat people with respect, smile, right? Just smile. It's really easy to smile. And then the other rule of thumb for any bartenders or waitresses out there, right, who are new to the game, never, ever like give a change back with a $5 bill and coin. Always break the $5 and the $10 up, always. Otherwise, you're never going to get tipped.
My tip to anybody bartending or waitressing is, when you screw up, always give the free dessert, always give the free cocktail, always make it right and give them something. And your tip will literally double. Like, I gave so much free dessert I worked at Toppers in Santa Monica at the top of the Huntley Hotel. It was a Mexican restaurant. And I screwed up a lot. Like, you know, I either dropped things or I lost them but I always was like, you always own it for one. I still go by that. Like if I fuck
Yeah,
up, it's like,
sure.
I'm so sorry. It's on 100% on me. And
Yeah.
can I give you a free piece of pie? Now
Right.
it's harder to do that, but that piece of pie or that flan or whatever I was giving them always made it better. And you always got a bigger tip.
Yeah. And that's just it, right? It's that whole cliche, service with a smile. Well, yeah. I mean, it's really, and I mean, there's comes to a point where people are customers or whatever that, and that face-to-face rudeness, right? You're always going to get that.
Yep.
And that's, you just got to know like, okay, I can't help you. I'm trying to help you, but I can't anymore. So let's just be done. But yeah, that was my approach to retail still to then and now. It's just like, hey, just you're making friends. That's what we're doing. If they're calling you, especially like for us with a brand, you know, we've got 1,900 SKUs that are available to our 3,500 customers.
Wow.
Well, they're probably, if they're calling us, then they need something, and they might need help. They might need assistance. They might need suggestions. They might need something. So let's just be super friendly on the phone. And then, because inevitably, right, it's about making money and selling product.
Yeah.
So you gotta push people that direction. If we need to help them.
But I will say this, and partly why I have this odd kinship to you is that you are genuine. Like I have a lot of reps we deal with, and I can tell you, and I'm sorry to the reps, but I can tell you on one hand how many of my reps are really truly genuine. Like,
Yeah.
and I know they see a lot of people, and I know, but there's something about reps that are like, or anybody, salespeople that are truly, truly genuine, because you could really tell. And it's not just that, hi, how are you? How's your summer? Like they really care. And that's much like your customer service philosophy is also mine. Like they were all my friends and my family. And very much now my clients are very much family. There's very few that I have that it's like a professional, you know, high relationship, but it's really, it's family. It's that genuine connection that, you know, that's ideally what obviously propels you going forward in your stores and your businesses and your lines. So
I think you get, and for me, I always say, and it drives my wife crazy sometimes too. And I tell my kids this, but I'm like, you can never have enough friends. Like you never have too many friends, you know, and your reps, like they're not all
going to make your wife crazy.
Well, I mean, she's like, oh my God. Cause you know, I can talk to anybody. She's just like, dude, come on. Like we have places to go. Like leave the cashier alone. Let's go. You know, that kind of thing. No, I'm not, I mean, I have been that bad, but no, I sometimes, yeah, I am sometimes well, I think it's a Geico commercial. Like, I don't know, one of those. But I think to your point, like, it's just, it really is true. Like if you have reps that become your friends or buyers that become your friends, like you're probably doing something right.
Yeah.
Like that's a big deal because, and I'm just an advocate for follow-up and keeping in touch with people. And again,
And that's another huge thing that
lesson to my kids and you know, coworkers and whatnot. It's like I have, because it used to be all business cards, and although we still use them, you know, I have probably 600-700 business cards in a top drawer in my office, and maybe 2 days a year I go through them, and because I have notes on them, and I kind of go through, okay, don't need it. Oh, let me, I'll put it in stacks. And it takes me about 2 days. And they know that I do this here, but I find these certain people, and they could be buyers. You know, it might've been a buyer for Cabela's, or might have been a former Zappos manager or division leader or whatever. Right. But because you never know, like when you need something, or when you need like, hey, I need an email for a buyer or you just don't know.
Yep.
So I've made it a habit to keep, to just kind of refresh my memory. And that's the beauty of LinkedIn, because once you get that name, okay, where are they? And if I can't find them, then I leave it. If I can, I was like, oh, wow, now they're here. It's like, cool. So I try to just kind of keep in touch with a lot of the people that I've just met over the years. And some, I go back, I mean, literally some of them, I go back 20, 25 years now.
That's amazing. My old reps from when I had my stores, I lost my stores and I went down in flames at Fred Siegel. And, I wasn't the nicest buyer. I say this a lot on the podcast. I was an asshole. I'm not gonna, I mean, I was really,
Oh God, I would have loved you. You and I we would have had so much fun.
I was really tight with like Brett from Stussy and Willie Morris from
But
Quick.
you've been a challenge to me. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make this girl like me.
I was okay. I walked in, you walk in with that's when we all wore badges. So you walk in with a badge. Fred
You
Siegel.
flip it. You turn it the other way. So
Yeah.
nobody.
No, I didn't, because I was an asshole. So
Okay.
it was like, okay, well, let's take a look at the line. And I'm just letting you know right now, like we do net 90, no matter what, like net 90. And what doesn't
that would have been the end of our relationship.
what doesn't sell goes back. I'm like, what an asshole. Like, really? You've had it for 90 days and now you're gonna tell me you're gonna fucking send it back? So anyway, but
see, it was you and the Macy's of the world that ruined it for retail.
But I will tell you though, from that experience and losing my ass and the humility and the humble pie you have to eat with a giant spoon.
Yeah.
I'm a very different person now, and I really am grateful for that experience. But I'm yeah, my reps did not keep in touch with me.
You're like, why does my phone never ring? I'm no longer this massive pen wielding, ink spilling buyer. Nobody calls me anymore.
Yeah, I mean, when I went down, everyone in the industry knew I went down, and it was like, people were super happy to see me go down. I could say now, like, obviously I've learned my lesson, and I ate a whole lot of humble pie, and
the big peace out, like peace out.
It's so bad.
So it's funny though that you say that, because really because you're saying that you were one of them. Mm-hmm. But like, that's the thing that is so challenging sometimes in this industry. It's like because you get that buyers tend to take that air about them, that approach. And if you were like a heavy like you were, then man, I guess it's just like, oh, okay, that makes sense. You know who she's with or he's with. And it's like, for me, I guess I've never, I don't know, I'm worse as I get older, right? I just don't care, because I'm not going to fight that hard to get that business anymore. Whereas before, I try and try. But now it's like, dude, I don't care if you have 120 stores. You're asking for net 90. I'm not going to give it to you. It's just that simple. I had that conversation, recently. I had it before pandemic, it was our last Magic before we shut down. And the guy walked up and was like, Mr. Cool Guy, he's like, oh, I've got 14 doors. I'm like, wow, that's great. Congratulations. I had one and I know how hard it was to run it. And man, you did 14 times. That's phenomenal. And I really said this to him, and I was genuinely impressed. And he's kind of got this, he just had this kind of approach, right? And I was like, wow, congratulations. That's so cool. And he goes, yeah, I sell a lot of socks. And I said, that's great. I said, we sell a lot of socks, and I'm just whatever. Like again, why do I care? So I said, yeah, we sell a lot of socks. And he goes, yeah, I'm pretty sure I could do really well with you. And I'm like, well, fantastic. What can I show you, And he goes, well, first things first, I need net, what did he say? Oh no, he started with a discount. He goes, I need 15% net 60. And I said, and I looked at him, I kind of laughed. I thought he was kidding. And I laughed, and I'm like, oh, I said, that's funny. And he's deadpan, and he looked at me, and he looked at me hard, and he goes, I'm serious. And I said, oh my God, you're serious. Whoa. And I laughed again. And now he's like red in the face. And I said, I am so sorry. I said, really, truly, I didn't mean to offend you. There's no way in hell we're doing that. And he goes, what do you mean? He said, I have 14 or 15 or whatever the hell. I think it was 14. I have 14 doors. And I said, so I said, and then this is when I stopped. And at the time, our internal sales manager was behind me. And I said, I just want to put this in perspective for you. You're asking for net 60 and you're looking for 15% off. I don't know you. I don't know how big of a player you are in the sock world, but if you don't have us and we're one of the biggest brands out here, then really, how big are you? How big is your sock business? And so then I said, and I'll go one further, because I was like, fuck it, I don't care, man. I'm not going to open this guy, so I don't care. So I said, and the fact that our $500,000 accounts per year plus don't get those terms is another indication that, yeah, we don't play that game. And he's like, red face. And he goes, well, will you do it for 13? I said, oh my God, I'm not going to go. No, I said, no, he won't. So he stomped off. Literally, he was like storming. He was fuming mad because all the other guys in the aisle, you know, had bent over backwards. And I'm like, yeah, we ain't having it. So the internal sales manager comes up and he's like, I can't believe you said no to that 14 doors. And I'm like, what? Why would we bend over for this guy and give him what we don't give X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
And I said, trust me, he's going to come back. Sure as shit. The next day, he comes in the morning and he finds me. He's like, all right, I'll tell you what, I'll do it. You give me net 40. He goes, you give me net 40. It's like we're buying a car. You give me net 45 and I'll take 10 points. And I said, again, not even close, but thank you. I appreciate you coming back.
Nice to see
Again,
you.
he stomped off. Well, guess what? I told him, I said, don't worry, he'll come back. He didn't come back to the booth. He called the sales manager, the inside sales manager directly. And then he asked him, okay, can I get X, Y, and Z? And so he'd come into my office and he said, so-and-so called back. And I'm like, what did you tell him? And he says, well, I told him I'd talk to you. I said, that's the wrong answer. He said, well, he's willing to come down to 3. I'm like, oh, really? He went from 15 to 3 points. Are you effing kidding me? I said, what kind of dating? He's like, well, he said he'd net 45. I said, no. I said, he wants to try it. We go all doors, 3% net 30. That's where we start. And he's got to hit X amount of thousands of dollars per year. Otherwise he loses it. And so we went back and told them, and sure shit, that's where he is.
So has he sold it now? Has he kept up with the sales?
Oh yeah. He's crushing it, but he won't talk to me in the booth. And I haven't increased his discount, nor will I, not for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I got the no on a couple times, and I did go in the next day, and you still try and act all
Tough,
fucking cocky, and you really can't, because it's like it's like, okay, I really want this fucking line. Fine, like let's just do it. And it's like,
I barely do this for anyone.
But in my defense, I was 27. I was 27 with 3 stores at Fred Siegel.
Yeah.
It's like,
and also I'll even defend you one further, because if you're buying for Fred Siegel, I mean that's there. You know, there's only a handful of retailers out there. Even when I was a retailer way back in the day, where you're at a show and you get the scuttlebutt of the buyers on the floor, right?
that's what happens.
Yeah, and you get like, oh my God, you know, Fred Siegel's in the building, or whatever, the buyer, the team, Fred Siegel team, or you know, back when Nordstrom was really powerful.
Yeah.
They heads up, Nordstrom crews in the building, right? That kind of thing. So you were admittedly, you were with a retailer that carried some serious clout and some, you know, the reputation, because if you're a brand, you want to be in the store.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, in your defense, I'll give it to you.
Sadly, I knew that, and sadly, that's why I was such an asshole.
Sadly, you knew it at a very young age.
Yeah, and again, I will be the first to say that it is like the best lesson ever. Like I can honestly say I'm super glad that I learned that young, and I still had a whole career of dealing in the industry that I learned that lesson back then. Because now at 56. It's like, okay, I'm not.
Yeah, you're a better buyer now too, as a result.
And right? I'm nice.
And you're nice. And you're nice.
Okay, enough about me. I want to hear about the Hawaiian shirt thing, and then I want to circle back and I want to talk about Socksmith.
Yeah. Well, the Hawaiian shirt thing was just that whole trend, right? For years and years in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, where it just Aloha shirts were all the rage, right? Tommy Bahama was doing whatever Tommy Bahama marketing agency was doing, selling a ton of silk shirts for $110, right? So for me in my store, I was, you know, I'd carried probably 10 Aloha shirt brands, authentic brands. I didn't carry Tommy Bahama for various reasons. One was because at the time they were so hot, they took that arrogant approach, and I was too small volume for them, even though I was selling probably at the time $100,000 to $150,000 a year of just Aloha shirts, you know, with 6 brands. So not bad. and I was one of my favorite stories. I was at one of my brands, the one vendor, and I was in kind of this kind of stadium approach where, you know, one row and then a row behind it and a row behind it. And we were looking at this, and it was an invite. So it was my appointment, but there was like 15 of us retailers. And I knew some of these guys, and they had long-term big men's stores. And here I am on the coast in a fairly large store, but I also did a lot of more women's business than men's. So I sat there, and I was one of their best customers. And he went around the room and he showed us this shirt, and it was a handmade with this, it's called a habutai rayon. So it was a vintage rayon that they used in the 40s and 50s. And it was just beautiful. And they had like these bamboo boxes that they were going to come in. They only did four patterns that they dug up from the archives and recreated with the same vintage. I mean, they were remarkable. They were going to retail for $250.
What line is that?
It was called Kahala. They're still around. And so anyway, I was sitting there, and I got my book and my little tear sheet, right? And I'm like making my notes, and I'm thinking in my head, okay, who in my customers can I sell this to off the top of my head? And I'm just gonna get 1, 2, 3, 4. So I go down my list, and I have 5 guys, and I know that when I call them, they'll come in and they'll buy 2 or 3 or 4 of these. And I know this, right? Because they're collectors, and that's all they wore, because that was the thing, right? So he gets to me, and he's like, Sean, how many? And, you know, guys were like, put me down for 6, put me down for 5. And I'm like, I said, yeah, I'm good for 30. And all of these guys looked at me, and they're like, this kid is free. And again, I was a lot younger. He's like, they're like looking at me like, this guy's crazy. And the VP of sales, who was actually pitching the line, looked at me and was like, yeah, I figured you'd be somewhere around there. And he like wrote the numbers down. So he pre-booked everything there. And I knew it. And I was like, that's where I was like, oh yeah, I'm fucking badass right here, man. I'm doing this. So
See, you had a little taste.
I did. And then I ended up selling like 22 to my guys that I thought. And then the others, you know, just from guys that like came in like, oh my God, this is brilliant. So that was really cool. But the Aloha shirt thing, you know, went on for a long time. And it was fun. It was fun to get on that kind of bandwagon and know you're going to sell really cool print that day, whether it be a rayon or a silk or a blend, whatever. And all that entire industry was just filled with guys that just really loved what they did. And that's how I met the guy that I stayed with on the coast for those few years, who's now, by the way, our director of operations. Wow. He retired from the road and came to Socksmith. So yeah, it was a trend. And then when I left retail, I moved into manufacturing, and then we used to build big Aloha shirt programs for like the Walmart type things of the world, just big container business, you know, low margins, big container, big volume.
I love like how much, you know, I mean, it's like, I've always said, like my most favorite conversations are with the people that have been in retail and have done everything from the very like at the store level to wholesale to, I mean, it's like, there's something about somebody that's so well-rounded and understands the industry. It's like,
I don't know if I'm well-rounded, but I've done a lot of shit. That's for sure.
So tell everyone, okay, Socksmith has how many SKUs do you have on?
Oh my gosh. In our book right now, I think the last count was like 1,902.
And you guys collaborate with artists, correct?
We do some licensing.
Licensing.
We have a division that does licensing, which is really good, except for that's not where, like, for me personally, I'm trying to get away from that. And here's why. You have a lot of brands are all in, right? They're friggin' neck deep. For example, Stance, like that's what they do, and they do it really well. But you have to sell a massive amount of volume to pay for some of these big fat royalties, and there are guarantees. When you literally have, 100 to 200 licenses that you're working with, and yeah, some of them are owned by big conglomerations, but your output of cash to pay for those is pretty steep.
So you will sign an artist, so licensing. So let's say Tapatio, which I love those socks.
Yeah.
So buy the license from Tapatio for
Yep.
X amount of dollars.
Yep.
And you produce the socks, and in order to get that back, you have to sell over and above, obviously, I'm assuming 2.0 to like what is the,
You guarantee it. So you're paying money up front to get the license. So it could be, depends on who it is, but it could be anywhere from $5,000 to 20 grand, 25 grand up front, right? To get it. And that's, I mean, compared to like what Stance does with like Major League Baseball, the NBA, like it costs them a lot more. I mean, it's 250 or 300,000 just to get a seat at the table to discuss possibly working. That's not even working with them. That's just to buy a ticket to the table. That's it. Wow. Right. So they did that years ago. But when you have an influx of 50 million, you can do that. Right. So anyway, I digress. So for us, we've been with Tapatio for a long time, Corona for a long time, a couple others for a very long time. And so, yeah, we paid our dues at the very beginning. Like, here's our annual fee. Here's our contract, and then a percentage of sales, right, quarterly. And then we just cut them a check. So the nice thing is that licenses we have, for the most part, we let some go, but just do really well. Like Tapatio, for example, it's one of our top 5 SKUs for men. And we do thousands and thousands and thousands of units per quarter. I mean, annually, it's a lot. So that part's pretty cool, right? But again, it has to be, if we jump into bed with another licensee, it has to be perfect. It has to make the most sense. And we've done things that just don't make sense. Our former brand manager was like all about this kind of aesthetic. He doesn't work for us anymore. But we were kind of chasing licenses that didn't make a lot of sense. So, and you pay for that, right? Because if it doesn't sell, you still got to pay. They still want their money. And so it's like, crap. Well, when does this, this contract expire? Let's get out of here. So I would rather invest in ourselves, hiring another designer, we're so creative. I mean, we have 7 designers right now, or 6 designers right now, full time.
Wow.
And they are brilliant. I mean, they are all so talented, and I'd rather see what they come up with on their own for their own designs and styles than, have them work on somebody else's art to make it cool, to work for our needs.
Yeah.
It just makes more sense. So to invest in yourself.
Tell me about some of the trends that are happening right now for men's and for women's, or is it just like as an overall trends that are like, I know for us, it was the camping thing, and it went from, now we've got it in kids. We even have baby rompers with tents on it, and then men, and then women. So tell me a little bit about what's driving the trends for you guys.
I think for the apparel and the accessory side, especially hard goods, tents and chairs and foldable chairs and all that stuff, was purely driven by COVID, right? There's an industry that exists already, and then you add COVID to the mix when people are shut in or on the road, and your Sprinter van sales go through the roof, and all of a sudden it's a year, and you have to wait a year to get them, and so on and so forth, right? All the way down to apparel for your baby rompers with the tent, right? Oh, this is so cute. We're gonna go camping more. Okay, well, there goes that industry spike, right? For us, it was a little different. For us, it was, we're so unusual when it comes to being a sock brand, whereas most, even our competitors, will introduce, 60 to maybe 80 new designs a year. Where, this year alone, we'll probably do close to 450 new designs.
Wow.
That's just this year. We did 300 and I think 304 during COVID.
I mean, as a buyer, that's huge, because there's a lot of sock companies that only introduce, like, I don't know, maybe like 20, and you'll go through the board and it's like most of what you're seeing is what you wrote last season.
Yeah.
And you still will sell those, but I'm the buyer that, like, I don't like to run things into the ground. I truly believe, like, you have your bread and butter lines, that line could be your bread and butter line, but you want to get in and get out. Because if you're like a pharmacy, we see the same people week in, week out. They've bought that sock, sock. It's like time to get new ones to keep everybody entertained, and like new product, and hard to do.
And that approach is exactly our approach, right? Because you're the buyer that resonates for us, because they're like, hey, we have those people out there that want to see new, and want to see fresh. So when we turn something, again, with 6 designers and over 400 new SKUs a year. They're creating all the time. So like I'm looking, I mean, behind me is part of fall 23. And then on the wall ahead of me, it's like a big chunk of fall 23, right? So spring 23 is to bed, has been to bed for a long time. Now the development, I mean, fall 23 is almost wrapped up. We have a few things arriving that will, and then eventually we'll pick the line, but they've already moved on, right? So for us, it's about newness. And to that point, it also means that we're harder to knock off, because as you know, you can knock anything off. I can go to Alibaba and find 100 of our designs. Yes, they are now 4, 5, 6 years old, but they're still ours.
Yeah.
And so, and they're not, I mean, we have a huge trademark thing, like legally, and we paid for it and all this crazy stuff. So I'm able to shut down a lot of it. But you know, our owner, my boss, is always like, hey, look, we can't stop the knockoffs. We just can't.
Yeah.
And you know, Amazon doesn't do anything, and Alibaba doesn't care because they want everybody. So we're just like design, and keep staying in front of them.
Yeah.
And that's our approach to it. It's just keep coming up with great, creative, really good, high quality stuff that sells. We know it sells. Thankfully, we're in a very fortunate position as a brand to know that our stuff works. And so, and we have all the data to kind of prove it, right? So it's nice. I mean, we're in 40,000 square feet. We've got 2 million units in stock right now. Our
That's incredible, especially right now with what's going on.
Yeah.
Are you guys produced in the US or is it produced?
We have some things that are made in the US, and then most of it's made in South Korea. And then we have some things that are made in China.
So Korea didn't have as much of a problem getting goods out as
yeah, I mean they shut down like everybody else, of course, but yeah, they fired up a little bit faster, of course, and then we loaded heavy, because we probably lost about, I think we lost about $1 million last year by not having inventory.
Mm-hmm.
We knew that Q4 was going to be strong, but it was actually way stronger than I anticipated.
It was stronger than everybody anticipated.
Yeah, even during a COVID, right? Even during, it was like, holy crap. And we had a great year, but it was still like, whoa, we just missed like having not, you know, that. So knock on wood right now, like we're up. I mean, of course, compared to last year, everybody should be up, of course. But we're up compared to our best year. We're up, which is phenomenal. I love it. Of course. So we're just like, okay, if the trend continues, let's be prepared so that we don't have to short ship someone, or, you know, we don't want to have that conversation, and it just drives us crazy not to be able to ship something.
Oh my God.
So we're loading heavy. We're heavy, like 2 million units right now in May. Woo.
Thank God. Because I can tell you right now that the gift industry, you know, it's hard in the beginning with apparel, because the apparel got it hit first, fast fashion at least.
Yeah.
And then the there are gift lines that they're massive gift lines. And I'll say it right now, it's Mud Pie, which is a massive line.
Mm-hmm.
And out of 40 SKUs, I got napkins and a butter dish, 2. So like, I don't know. I mean, the gift industry, it's like, and to hear that somebody has that many units on it, you know, is phenomenal, because it is so rare, and it is extremely hard to find. Like, as a buyer, I like to find goods that are in stock. So I know the people that are retailers that are listening, it's like, that is huge news, because
and it was 100% intentional, right? We sat down after last year and said, okay, where did we miss? Because we knew we were forecasting to be up, right? So that was good. We thought we had enough covered as far as merchandise, because we thought we had the right amount of product, but we sold out of things really fast, because I remember during a 3-week period in October, we had a series of 50, I think one was 89. Our biggest was like $126,000 fill-ins, ASAP fill-ins that we were able to fulfill close to 90%.
Wow.
And after that, we were looking at ourselves like, oh shit, like if we get another one of those, which we want, but it could be tough.
Yeah.
And so then when you take those big hitters out who are like, hey, do you have goods? in addition to the POs they'd already given us, right? That we knew were coming and that we built for. So the fill-in chasing product, that was one thing. But then you add another, 3,000 accounts that are also calling for their, their 6-packs or their $500 fill-in order. And you start doing all the math. It's like, okay, we've clearly sold out of stuff and we were not prepared. So we shot ourselves in the foot a little bit, because I didn't plan on the big hits, the big heavies coming back.
Well, I mean, you kind of have to have a crystal ball in a sense to be able to really.
Hard.
And now that at least now that you've learned that you are, because I know there's a couple gift lines that have done the same thing. They've really doubled down on what it's great because you call and it's like there's stock and they have plenty of it, and it's, it's not getting the answer. This will arrive in like Easter stuff. This will arrive in September.
So bad, right? I mean, fortunately, we're in an industry where it doesn't spoil. There's no shelf life. It doesn't. Yeah. It's not fast fashion where the button is weird and the sleeves are now flared, and then 2 years later it's like, oh, there's no more flared sleeves. Like, you can't wear that because people will laugh at you, right? It's not that. So whatever. I think there was one of the Jonas Brothers was on TV the other day, and I saw he had a flared sleeve. I'm like, dude, it's a suit. You look kind of like a dork. Like, you're not wearing that in a month, I guarantee it. So it was kind of funny. and I just got a new suit for a wedding I'll be going to in June. I'm thinking, I looked at my daughter and I was like, should I do that to my sleeve on my suit? She's like, Dad. I'm like, hey, I want to be cool like a Jonas brother. Come on.
Hey, Harry Styles, man.
Yeah.
Ruffle, collar, and the whole thing. Come on.
Harry can do it.
Tell me a little bit about the owners of Socksmith, because you speak very highly of them and they sound like they are an incredible team, and it sounds like they are incredibly giving and kind, and I don't want to end this interview without talking about them.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Eric and Ellen Gill, just two of the most remarkable people I've ever met in my life. Truly. I mean, really good, genuine people. And I tease them because I'm like, you need to write your book. You need to write your book. Not only are they genuine, they're incredibly kind and selfless, and they are brilliant retailers. I mean, Eric in his own right, as far as running a company and doing it right, taking the right risks, not being afraid to take a risk, spending the money where he needs to. That to me is phenomenal, right? Because I had come from brands that didn't want to spend a dime, right? And just like, well, no, what's that going to yield us? It's like, dude, like, you have to spend to earn. And when I was hired 6 years ago, I like a month later, we were spending $90,000 to update a website. I inherited 3 reps. I now have 48. He wasn't afraid, right? He's never been afraid to spend money where we needed to. And we do it smart, right? We've taken some risks that haven't paid off as well, but we weren't like, oh my God, we can't go to this show because our budget's gone. We've never been like that. Thank God.
And I think that a lot of people get tied up in that of like the scarcity. It's almost a scarcity mindset where it's like, you're just going to hold tight and you don't take any risks. And then you're literally sitting.
Yeah. And then everybody goes by you, right? Because they weren't afraid to do what you are afraid to do. So anyway, he's just phenomenal. And then his wife, Ellen, I tease him again too. It's like, I don't know, you guys work together so well. Whereas I know my wife and I would be like, bam, bam, bam. But they work together beautifully. They've been retailers for over 30 years. They've had multiple stores. I think they've actually sold 4 or 5 stores to their employees over the years.
That's what got me
on. Who are still open for business, doing amazing business.
Are they Socksmith stores?
They're sock stores, but yeah, they started as sock and shoe. So they started sock shop and shoe company, which is the mothership, what we call the mothership on the retail side.
Okay.
A beautiful 10,000 square foot store downtown Santa Cruz on Pacific Ave. And
I heard about that.
It's incredible. It's in an old bank building, right? So it's got these big marble pillars.
I've heard about that store.
Oh, it's phenomenal. It truly is phenomenal. We have our sales meetings. We all go down there just so they can see like what a truly gifted retailer does, like how they merchandise socks, not just ours, but like all the other brands, how they merchandise, how they sell shoes, how they interact with customers, how they just, it is truly a phenomenal store. And it's, I mean, it's a destination in Santa Cruz.
Wow.
So Ellen does kind of the retail side and she's brilliant. And then Eric does the wholesale side. And then together they kind of cross paths over. Yeah. So, but I mean, I go on for days and I won't, but they truly are beautiful, wonderful people. And you know, game changers for me in my life for sure. Having, you know, worked with them now for almost 6 years. Yeah.
I think that it speaks volumes about how tight knit their team is. The fact that they sell their retail spaces to their employees, that they believe in them and they believe in the brand. And it's
awesome. And I used to tell
a simple thing a little bit.
Yeah. I told Ellen often, like, you know, had I met Ellen and Eric when I was a retailer, right? So if I would have had conversations, retail conversations with them when I was running my store, I think I could have navigated through what I was going through. At least I would have had a better chance, right?
Mm-hmm.
A fighting chance. I didn't really have a fighting chance. I was never trained. I bought it on emotion because I loved being a retailer. So there were a lot of negatives that were positives. But had I had a retail upbringing, like with Eric and Ellen in their stores, being trained the way that they train their employees, I think I would have had a fighting chance to stay afloat.
I've heard and this will tell you, like, I think there's a line that I work for, a gift showroom called Stephen Young, and his showrooms are known. He's known for the visual. And Lisa, his wife, has a house in Albatross. And I guess she's the one who told me about that store and the customer service. And I have very few people that mentor me and that I look at as far as visual and where I want to be. And Lisa's eye and Stephen's eye is insane. Like they're top-notch wholesalers and their vision. And that was one of the stores that they had told me that I need to go to, and that speaks volumes, because that's why I know that store. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Well, if you're up this way, we're going. Take you down.
I would love to. I'm headed up to Morgan Hill next week.
Not too far away.
No, I know. It's just up
over the hill.
That's what I heard, up and over the hill.
It's a gnarly hill, but yes, it is.
I wouldn't be driving. My husband would be. So okay. We're going up to film. We're taking this Retail Horror podcast is now become the Retail Horror road trip.
Nice.
We're going to stores in different cities, and we're actually doing the interview in the store. So retailers are visual. So now they're going to see it. So that's the plan, is to go scope out some. So hopefully you'll make their introduction with me and the owners, because I would love either we do a road trip or interview with the podcast.
Oh, it'd be great.
Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad you found my card.
Oh my God, you were so much fun.